Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and this week's going to be a little different because I started recording this podcast last week, and my computer was trying to download background stuff, and I had to be somewhere, so I didn't get to finish it. And I'm going to use what I started recording last week that didn't pick up the fans running, and then I will continue from there. So, without further ado, here is the podcast that should have released last week. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and drag this whole mental health thing back to where it's supposed to be. Now, this week I'm going to talk about Commander Sealed, and that's probably all I'm going to have the time to talk about. I was not able to sit down and record anything last week just because of how hectic the week was with Commander Sealed happening, but that's neither here nor there. Now, the way Commander Sealed works is you get randomly shuffled into a pod of 4. Between those other 3 players, you all open up your packs, and then you can trade within your pod. Because, at least for the first round, you're definitely not going to be paired against any of them. So you're kind of encouraged to build the best deck you can. And so we all opened and started looking through, and I opened a Big Dumb Dinosaur, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm running Gruul. But besides the point, as we started kind of opening up and building, I basically immediately slammed into Gruul. My other options were like Bant with the Adventure Guy, but I didn't really see that going anywhere. And that was kind of it. Then, let's see, the person diagonal from me also started out in Gruul. So as we were kind of going through and splitting, our cards to make sure we both had playable decks, he ended up pivoting to mono white with the cloud that could search up an equipment and a few equipment that other people weren't playing, and decided he was going to go mono white and see what he could do with that. As a result, I just got to build the best Gruul deck I could, and yeah, so the person across from me ended up building a blue-black, not necessarily a control shell, but it looked like he was definitely almost a control shell. He had a good number of removal spells, counter spells, but it looks like his main goal was to just put a lot of little guys on the board and then overwhelm his opponents. And the person next to me was going red-black. So we were splitting red, but that didn't really matter because he went red-blue. So it didn't really bother me too much because he was going more of a Spellslinger list, and it just didn't really go with what I was trying to do. But yeah. So again, after you open up and you kind of decide what you're doing, you can kind of swap back and forth. So we were literally just being like, well, here's my pile of this color because I'm not using it. Take what you want. Let me see your pile of green. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you ever are in the Rochester area around September, it's definitely a thing you want to check out. Now, and they did also have like different side events and like different things going on that weren't just sealed. I didn't actually participate in any of it because I legitimately went to work Friday, showed up Friday night, exhausted, played in the thing on Saturday, hit my room intending to just take a nap and then get up and go do some things, passed the heck out, did not wake up until Sunday morning, and then decided, yeah, no, I think I'm just going to go home because I really just need to get some sleep. But I do know by the time I got home, they were close to $75,000 raised. I don't know what the total number was. I had not heard. But, this is like 200 Magic players coming together to just raise money for charity. And watching it grow every year has been wonderful. Even though I unfortunately did not get to participate last year because I just couldn't fit it into the schedule with everything else I had going on last year. This is one of those things I would like to do every year. Just, it's for charity. It's something I like doing, and at the end of the day, it's still sealed. And sealed is the best way to enhance your deck building because you don't have the luxury of looking through everything and just playing the card that fits in that situation. You end up playing some really weird, like, well, I wouldn't necessarily put this in a deck, but it's all I have that does that thing. And yeah, even though I left the weekend completely drained, 10 out of 10 would do again. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and then when I get back, I'm going to talk about the deck that I did build, and it was a doozy. And we're back. Now, the deck that I ended up building was Atali Primal Conqueror. So it's 5 red for a 7/7 Elder Dinosaur with Trample. When it enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, and you may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. Then for 9 and a Phyrexian green mana, you can transform Atali and activate only as a sorcery. It becomes Atali Primal Sickness. It is an 11/11 Phyrexian Elder Dinosaur with Trample, indestructible, and when it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. So when I saw this, my first thought was, okay, he's expensive, so I'm going to want ramp. So I just picked up everything in my pool that could make mana and traded for other things that could make mana. So, I ended up with, and I'm not going to go into like terribly great details because there's a lot of them, but we've got Llanowar Elves, Moss Diamond, Grafted Growth, Decanter of Endless Water, Blighted Burgeoning, Scorned Villager, Nature's Lure, Reach the Horizon, the Gooblu Gardener. I don't know. It's from the Final Fantasy set. It's a 1/3 that taps for green mana. Zeldinkt, which allows you to play an additional land each turn and then bounces a land back to your hand at the end of your turn. We had a Hoarding Ogre that when it attacks can make treasures. We had a Wildfield Scarecrow that comes down as a 1/4 defender, but then you can pay 2 and sacrifice it to get 2 basic lands into your hand. We had an Arboreal Grazer, which can put a land into play tapped when it enters. Fertilid's Favor, which can both put counters on creature and search for basic lands. Galactic Wayfarer, which makes a lander token. Percy's Wanderings, Starting Column. It's just anything that could get me a land or tap to make mana or enters and gives me mana, I threw it in here. I even had the Timberland Ancient and the Furnace Host Charger, which are both just big creatures. The Charger's a 5/5 with haste for 6, and the Ancient is a 6/5 with reach and trample for 6. But they respectively have mountain cycling and forest cycling. So it just was another way to get lands. Another way I had to get lands was the Invasion of Zendikar. So that's one of the sieges, and when it enters the battlefield, you search for 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And it has 3 toughness, basically. And when it flips, it becomes a 4/4 with Vigilance, Haste, and as long as it's on the battlefield, it's a land in addition to its other types, and it taps for 1 mana of any color. Yeah, so the ramp went hard, even if it's not like a traditional ramp deck. Just anything and everything. Another way I had to try and cheat my commander into play was a Geode Golem, which is the 5 mana 5/3 golem with trample. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. Never got to play the golem, but it was there just as kind of a backup because Atali starts at 7 and typically does not live very long the first time you play him. Then it becomes 9 and then, 11. So, yeah, it was nice to have the option. Now, I want to talk about some of the more exciting cards, but I'm going to save those for the end because another thing I put a heavy emphasis on with this deck was removal and damage. So, again, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly without going into too much detail, but we have a Skewer the Critics, a Bombard, a Lightning Bolt, a Bolt Wave, a Braid, Burst Lightning, Lightning Strike, Mugging, Call in a Professional, Breath Weapon, which is one I didn't know existed, but it's 3 mana, do 2 damage to each non-dragon creature, which is just... It was good at clearing up small boards, and I rarely had anything that this caught, and if I did, I normally didn't care. We have a Bite Down, a Thunder Magic, a Demon Fire, Alchemist's Greeting, Tandem Takedown, and Pack Attack. So yeah, that's kind of the basis for what I tried to build this deck on. But I want to talk about the more exciting cards now with a little more detail. So I'm going to start this off with the fact that my deck had a pair of Swiftfoot Boots, which is just chef's kiss with an Atali. So again, 2 mana, artifact, equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste, and equips for 1. The funny thing about the way Atali transforms is he does not leave and come back, which means if you have boots on him, the boots remain on him. Another thing I had but never came up in any of my games was Triple Triad, which is 3 red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles the top card of their library. Until end of turn, you may play the cards you own exiled this way, and each other card exiled this way with lesser mana value than it without paying their mana costs. There you go. Bit of a mouthful, but I tended to have the big creatures at the table, and I figured, if I flip something like Galta, which is, Galta Primal Hunger, which is 10 green, which is 12 mana, I'd be able to play just about anything else. But speaking of Galta, it's 10 green for a 12/12 Elder Dinosaur. It costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control, and it has trample. And that's it. It's just a big dinosaur. I do want to go into... So, the first trigger Atali has when it enters. I kind of wanted to find other ways to trigger that. And I kind of did with the Wand of Wonder. So it's 3 and a red for 4 mana for an artifact. And you can pay for and tap it to roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. Then shuffles the rest into their library. You may cast up to X instant and or sorcery cards from among the exiled cards this way without paying their mana cost. You determine X with rolling a d20. So 1 to 9 is 1, 10 to 19 is 2, and 20 is all 3. Yeah. Now, there's a creature in here that was kind of pivotal in the one game I did win. And that's Spitfire Lagak. It's 3 in red for a 3/4 lizard. It has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. That trigger ended up doing like 12 damage to everybody. And I, protected the Lagak several times. Because it, along with another 4 toughness creature, was keeping the Codus from attacking me. And it just worked out well. Another big beater guy we have is Stalking Vengeance, which is 5 red for a 5/5 avatar with haste. But whenever another creature you control dies, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. The thing is, people really liked killing Atali. So, if you have Stalking Vengeance out and they kill Atali, they, at least somebody, is going to take 7 damage. And yeah. Now, another one I want to talk about is the Duskwatch Recruiter, because anybody who's played with Recruiter knows it goes kind of hard. So it's 1 in a green for a 2/2 human warrior werewolf. But for 3 mana, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast, last turn, transform the creature, and it becomes Krellin Horde Howler, which is a 3/3 with creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if a player casts 2 or more spells last turn, transform this creature. The goal is to get this down and then flipped, and then try and keep it flipped. That way it, made Atali cheaper. Only saw it once, and it did not live very long, so did not get to reap those benefits. Now for the last 2, which are kind of like the 2 best non-creature spells in my deck, and where I'm going to kind of end this. The first thing I picked up from a guy who was originally going to build Gruul, but then swapped to mono white because none of us and the rest of the pod were running white. I picked up a Rhythm of the Wild, which is 1 and Gruul for an enchantment, but creature spells you control can't be countered, which was nice because, again, Atali gets countered a lot. And non-token creature control have Riot, so that means when they enter, they either get a +1/+1 counter or haste. So depending on what I needed, I could, make something have bigger toughness to block better. Or I could give Atali haste, which I did a couple of times. And finally, we have Nature's Rhythm, which is X green for a sorcery. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. And it has Harmonize for X green, so you can cast it from your graveyard. And you can tap a creature you control to reduce the cost by generic mana equal to its mana value, I believe. And I, again, have big creatures with big mana costs. So, cast Nature's Rhythm. Make sure X is 12. Go get Galta. Cast it from the graveyard. Tap Galta. Add 12 to X. I just, it was self-fueling, That said, if you do want to see the full deck, I do have it up on my Mox Field. Pretty sure I labeled it Commander Shield 2025, but I could be wrong. It's been a couple of weeks. That's it. I'm gonna end this here, I think. Yeah, so I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulvey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.